I opened the door, and there he was, Jake, my son-in-law, standing just a breath away. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. My heart raced as I took in his dark hair, tousled and slightly damp, as if he had just stepped out of the rain. He looked up at me with those piercing blue eyes, and for a moment, time stood still. "Hi," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. It sent a shiver down my spine. My husband was away on a business trip, leaving me alone in the house, alone with Jake. "Hey," I managed to reply, feeling a strange mix of excitement and dread. What was happening? I could feel the question hanging in the air between us. What are we about to do? Jake took a step closer, and I could smell his cologne, a rich, intoxicating scent that wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. I could feel my pulse quicken, the chill of uncertainty turning into something warmer, something alive. My mind raced with thoughts I didn't want to entertain, yet they danced around me like a forbidden melody. "I thought I'd drop by to help with the garden," he said, a casualness in his tone that felt anything but casual. There was a challenge in his gaze, a spark that ignited a fire deep within me. I swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down on my chest. "Sure, that sounds great," I replied, though my heart was screaming another story. What was I thinking? This was my son-in-law, yet all I could focus on was the way he looked at me, as if he could see parts of me that had long been hidden away. I remember the first time I really saw Jake. It was at a family gathering, a sunny afternoon filled with laughter and the scent of barbecued meat wafting through the air. He had always been my son-in-law, polite and respectful, but that day felt different. As I watched him joke with my daughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more simmering beneath the surface. Still, I pushed those thoughts away. We had always had a cordial relationship, but it was distant, like two ships passing in the night. For years, family gatherings were filled with small talk and laughter, but there was never a hint of attraction. Jake was always the perfect gentleman, and I was his mother-in-law. There were boundaries we both respected, but things began to change when my husband started taking longer business trips. Those weekends alone became quiet and heavy, filled with a silence that echoed through the house. I found myself looking at Jake differently, noticing the way he carried himself, the way his laughter seemed to light up the room. One evening, while I was tidying up the living room, Jake stopped by to check on me. "Hey, I thought I'd see how you're doing," he said, leaning against the doorway with that casual charm of his. There was a twinkle in his eye that I had never noticed before, and it made my heart skip a beat. "Need any help?" I smiled, a bit surprised. "I think I'm all right, but thank you." But as he stepped inside, something shifted in the air. I felt a tension that hadn't been there before, as if an invisible thread was being pulled tighter between us. We chatted about mundane things at first, but then, amidst the casual conversation, I discovered a different side of Jake. He spoke passionately about his work, his dreams, and suddenly, I was captivated. "You know, I never knew you were so ambitious," I said, genuinely impressed. He shrugged, a hint of a smile on his lips. "I guess it doesn't come out much during family dinners." There was a moment of silence, and I could feel the atmosphere thickening. It was as if we were both aware of the shifting dynamic, but unsure of how to address it. I could see a new light in his eyes, and it drew me in, making my heart race. "Have you ever thought about what you want outside of all this?" he asked, his voice dropping to a softer tone. I met his gaze, feeling a flutter of excitement mixed with fear. "I don't know. I think about it sometimes, but it's complicated." "Life is complicated," he said, taking a step closer. "But it's also short. You should live for yourself." His words hung in the air, and I could feel my breath quickening. It was a casual conversation, yet it felt charged with something unnameable. I glanced away, trying to ground myself. I was his mother-in-law. This was wrong. But as I looked back at him, I saw a different Jake, a man who was no longer just my son-in-law, but someone I found myself strangely attracted to. "Maybe I need to take a few risks," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Jake's eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite place. "Sometimes risks lead to the best adventures," he said, and I felt the weight of his words. The way he looked at me sent shivers down my spine. There was a question hanging in the air, unspoken, yet palpable. What are we about to do? That night, I lay awake, the darkness wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. My mind kept drifting back to Jake's words. I remembered the laughter from that family gathering, the way he had looked at me, not just as family, but as a woman. It was bewildering and thrilling. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The next few weeks felt different. Every time Jake came by, I sensed a change. He was more playful, his touches lingering a bit longer than they used to. During one of our chats, he casually brushed his fingers against my arm, sending a jolt of electricity through me. "You okay?" he asked, concern flashing in his eyes. "I'm fine," I replied, trying to mask the thrill coursing through me. But I wasn't fine. I was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't fully grasp. The tension between us escalated, and I couldn't help but wonder what would happen if I let my guard down. Then came the invitation that turned everything upside down. "How about a drink?" he suggested one evening, his voice smooth and inviting. "Just you and me? Your husband is away after all." I hesitated, my heart racing. "Jake, are you sure that's a good idea?" He smiled, a devilish glint in his eyes. "It's just a drink. What's the worst that could happen?" I knew the answer to that question, yet I found myself nodding. "Okay, let's do it." As soon as the words left my mouth, a thrill of excitement shot through me. Something was changing, and I was ready to see where it would lead. I couldn't help but feel like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. The air was thick with anticipation, and as I prepared for our night out, I felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. This was not just a drink. It was the beginning of something I could no longer ignore. I'm not sure how to describe that day when I opened the door and saw him standing there. Jake, my son-in-law, was leaning against the doorframe with that casual confidence that had always intrigued me. My heart raced as I processed the sight of him, his dark hair slightly tousled, his shirt fitting just right. I could feel the air thicken, a tension that seemed to pulse between us. My husband was away on a business trip, and the house felt emptier than usual. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting," Jake said, his voice smooth and warm. The way he looked at me, with those deep-set eyes, sent a shiver down my spine. There was something about his gaze that held me captive, a silent question hanging in the air. "What are we about to do?" "No, not at all," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside, allowing him to enter, and as he brushed past me, I felt the faintest touch of his arm on mine. It was a simple gesture, but it ignited something deep within me, something I didn't want to acknowledge. We had always shared a cordial yet distant relationship, one built on family gatherings and polite conversations. I remembered the holidays where he'd laugh and mingle with everyone, the attraction always lurking beneath the surface but never daring to show itself. But everything changed when my husband began spending more time away. It was as if the distance opened a door I never knew existed. "Can I get you a drink?" I offered, trying to keep my voice steady as I led him to the kitchen. "Sure, that would be nice," he replied, his smile disarming. I poured 2 glasses of wine, attempting to steady my nerves. As I handed him a glass, Our fingers brushed, and I felt a jolt of electricity that made my heart race. "Thanks," he said, taking a sip. His eyes were locked onto mine, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. "You know, it's been nice having you around while your husband is out. It feels different." "Different how?" I asked. My curiosity piqued, despite the warning bells ringing in my head. "I don't know," he said, his voice dropping to a lower tone. "More relaxed, I guess. Like we can actually talk." I nodded, feeling the tension build as we engaged in small talk. But there was an undercurrent of something more, something unspoken that hung between us. The way he leaned closer, the way his voice changed. Each moment made it harder to deny the chemistry that was crackling in the air. "Maybe we should grab a drink together sometime, just the two of us," Jake suggested, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Are you serious?" I asked, half laughing, half intrigued. "Why not? It could be fun," he shrugged. But there was a challenge in his tone that sent a thrill through me. The invitation hung there, heavy and tempting. I could feel the pull towards him, the sense that something was shifting between us. "I don't know if that's a good idea," I replied, trying to sound firm, but knowing that part of me was curious, excited even. "Come on, it's just a drink. No one needs to know. Just a little summer fun while your husband is away," he pushed, and the way he said it felt like a dare. I hesitated, my mind racing. I thought about my husband and the life we had built together. But there was something about Jake that drew me in, a spark that felt dangerously alive. "All right, maybe just one drink," I finally said, surprising myself with my own words. "Perfect," he grinned, and I felt my heart flutter. Little did I know that simple decision would set off a chain of events I could never have predicted. As the days passed, the excitement grew. Each time we exchanged glances, the air felt charged, electric. I found myself thinking about him more than I should have, replaying our conversations in my mind. The casual touches became more frequent, more lingering, each one igniting a fire I had long kept buried. It was during one of those moments, as he brushed his fingers against my arm, that a new kind of awareness washed over me. His voice was low and inviting as he said, "You know, I've always thought you were beautiful." His words sent a thrill through me, one that was both exhilarating and terrifying. I could feel my heart racing, caught in this web of desire and fear. How did we get here? What were we doing? In that moment, I realized that everything was about to change. The boundaries I had carefully maintained were beginning to blur, and I was standing on the brink of something I could not take back. The question loomed larger than ever. What are we about to do? And as I looked into Jake's eyes, I knew we were about to cross a line neither of us had the courage to acknowledge until now. I remember that night vividly. The air was thick with tension, and I could hear my heart pounding in my chest as I opened the door. There he was, Jake, my son-in-law, standing there with that familiar, boyish charm. It felt strange to see him waiting for me, his expression a mix of determination and something else, something that sent a chill down my spine. My husband was away on a business trip, and the absence of his presence hung heavily in the air, creating an almost electric atmosphere between us. "Hi, I thought I'd check in on you," Jake said casually, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made me feel exposed. I forced a smile, trying to play it cool, but my stomach churned with a mix of excitement and apprehension. I wondered, was this innocent? Or were we crossing a line that should remain uncrossed? "Thanks for stopping by," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside to let him in, the door closing with a quiet click that felt like a finality. We stood there in the hallway, the distance between us charged with unsaid words. I could feel his gaze on me, devouring every inch, and it made me shiver. Did he know what I was thinking? Did he feel it too? As we moved to the living room, I tried to focus on the project I needed help with. We had spoken about it casually before, but now it felt different. I could hardly concentrate. Jake's presence was overwhelming, and every time he brushed against me, it sent a jolt of electricity through my body. I could see the way he looked at me, as if he was trying to read my thoughts, and I found myself wondering what we were really doing there together, alone. "Do you need help with anything specific?" he asked, his voice low and inviting. I could feel my cheeks flush, and I turned my head away, suddenly aware of how close he was. I could almost smell his cologne, a warm, spicy scent that wrapped around me like a blanket. "I just need to finish this," I mumbled, gesturing to the papers scattered across the table. But my mind was racing, and the words felt hollow. The air was thick with unspoken tension, and I caught his gaze lingering on my lips for a moment too long. Time slipped away as we worked side by side, the tension building with every shared glance. I could sense the shift in the atmosphere, the way our bodies subconsciously leaned closer together. I felt a strange thrill at the thought of being so near him, a thrill that was both exhilarating and frightening. Then it happened. We both reached for the same piece of paper, our hands brushing against each other. The world around us faded, and I felt a sudden heat rise in my cheeks. Our eyes locked, and in that moment, everything else disappeared. It was as if we were the only two people in existence, and the weight of what was happening hung heavy in the air. "Jenna," he said softly, his voice barely a whisper, but it was enough to send shivers down my spine. I shouldn't feel this way, but I do." I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "Jake, we can't. This isn't right." But even as I said it, I could see the resolve in his eyes, the way he leaned in slightly, as if daring me to pull away. He took a step closer, and I could feel the heat radiating off him. "What if we just kissed? Just once? It doesn't have to mean anything." His words hung in the air, and I could feel my breath hitch in my throat. A part of me wanted to push him away, but another part, a darker, more adventurous part, wanted to lean into that moment, to explore the forbidden territory we stood on. Before I could respond, he closed the gap between us, cupping my face in his hands. The kiss was unexpected, a rush of sensation that ignited every nerve in my body. It was soft at first, a gentle brush of lips that quickly deepened into something more fervent. I felt my knees weaken, and I couldn't help but melt into him, surrendering to the moment. As we pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, I knew that we had crossed a line we could never uncross. The kiss had sealed our fate, binding us in a secret that would change everything. I could see the mix of triumph and mischief in his eyes, and I felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with guilt. What had we just done? "Now we really can't go back," he said, a playful smirk tugging at his lips. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream, but all I could do was stand there, heart racing, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. I was teetering on the edge of something dangerous and thrilling, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to jump or pull back. "Jake, we need to think about this," I stammered. But deep down, I felt a flicker of excitement. The thrill of the unknown pulled me in, and I knew that this was just the beginning of something I never thought I would want. I opened the door, and there he was, Jake, my son-in-law, standing there with an intensity in his eyes that made my heart skip a beat. He had an easy smile, but today it felt charged, almost electric. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment. My husband was away on a business trip, and suddenly the air in the room felt thick with unspoken words. "Hey," Jake said, his voice low and inviting as he stepped inside. I could sense a shift, a tension that had never been there before. I closed the door behind him, the sound echoing in the stillness of the house, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Was it excitement or fear? I couldn't tell. "Hi," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I tried to act casual, to keep my expression neutral, but I could feel the pulse of something forbidden between us. What were we doing? I was his mother-in-law, and he was my daughter's husband. Yet, today, everything felt different. Jake moved closer, and I could see the way his gaze lingered on me. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by," he said, a hint of mischief dancing in his eyes. "Not at all," I managed to say, my heart racing. I gestured towards the living room, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. But as he followed me, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something we couldn't take back. We settled on the couch, a space that had always felt safe and familiar. But now, with Jake sitting beside me, the boundaries began to blur. I could smell his cologne, a mix of cedar and warmth, and it enveloped me like a soft blanket. It was comforting, yet thrilling, and I found myself leaning in just a fraction more than I should. "So, how have you been?" I asked, trying to fill the silence that felt so charged. It was a simple question, but I knew it was loaded with implications. "Busy with work and family," Jake replied, his eyes searching mine. "But I've been thinking about you. I know it's a bit strange, but I feel like we've always had a connection, don't you?" His words hung in the air, and I felt my breath catch. Did he really just say that? My heart raced as I fought to maintain my composure. "I suppose we get along well," I said, trying to play it down, but inside, a storm was brewing. "More than that," he insisted, leaning closer. "I mean, I've always admired you. You're amazing, you know?" I felt a blush creep up my cheeks. "Thank you, Jake. That's sweet of you to say." But the compliment only made my heart pound louder. The question lingered in the back of my mind. "What are we doing?" As we talked, the conversation flowed easily, but the tension was palpable. Every laugh we shared felt like a secret, every glance charged with unacknowledged desire. I caught myself stealing glances at his lips, wondering what it would feel like to kiss him, an idea that both excited and terrified me. The minutes turned into hours as we reminisced about family gatherings, shared stories, and joked about the absurdities of life. Yet beneath the surface, the air crackled with an undeniable attraction that neither of us dared to name. Then, without thinking, I reached out to touch his arm, a casual gesture that sent a jolt of electricity through me. He looked down at my hand, and I could see the flicker of something in his eyes, a mix of surprise and longing. "Did you just—" he started, his voice trailing off as he met my gaze. "I didn't mean to," I stammered, pulling my hand back, but it was too late. The moment hung between us like a fragile glass ornament, ready to shatter. "Maybe we should stop," he suggested, but there was a spark of hope in his voice, as if he was waiting for me to push back. "Maybe," I echoed, but I didn't move away. Instead, I leaned in closer, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. The question danced in my mind. What are we doing? But the answer felt too complicated to face. Before I knew it, the space between us vanished, and Jake's fingers brushed against my cheek.